Camp, who is the apparent winner, who has been declared and projected the winner in the presidency of the Public Service Commission. He talked with George Mitchell.
Mr. Camp, first, congratulations on your
Thank you, George.
victory.
Thank you.
What do you contribute to such an outstanding victory?
Well, George, I would like to think that we got to some of the key issues in the campaign, getting credibility and confidence back into the Public Service Commission. And what I like to say is taking a realistic approach to the regulatory problem in Alabama. And we tried to do a real extensive job of getting to the people back in the Democratic primary. Had a good win then and sort of rode that on through here. We didn't have a lot of money for the advertising and everything that we would have liked to have had in the general election, but we did make a lot of personal appearances and personal contacts, telephone contacts, and I think that all paid off. Also, well, I'd like to say to the people tonight, thank you. I'm most grateful for the vote I've received. I know that I had to receive a lot of crossover voting, split ticket voting of people who voted for Governor Reagan and others, and I'm most grateful for that. And I'm going to do the best job that I can to live up to the confidence that the people have expressed in me through this vote.
Will we see much of a change in the PSC with you as president?
Well, I think you're going to see a new direction, a more comprehensive look at the things that involve the total picture of utilities and the delivery of utility service. I've touched on a couple of things in the campaign that I'll briefly mention. That is bringing together the southeastern states, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, and Florida in particular, because we've got so much common interest in that this is the area that makes up the Southern Company, which Alabama Power is a subsidiary of. Not in a punitive aspect, but to try to find some real answers as we look at the total picture here. Also, I think we've got to look at what we are doing to ourselves in the nature of government regulations. You know, the government is all of us collectively, and when we put regulations on the industries that cause them to have to do certain things, that's adding cost down the line, and it might be astonishing to find out how much of the cost that's in that kilowatt hour that we use in our home that's there as a result of regulations that we've put on. So I think we've got to find what that cost is, lay it out and look at it, and then see if we need all these things that we've required ourselves to do.
Well, thank you very much, and again, congratulations.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much.
Billy Joe Camp, the apparent winner in the Public Service Commission presidency. We'll be back with more on Decision 80. We'll take a look at the 2nd District congressional race and talk with Cecil Wyatt in a moment.
Elegant stoneware. You'll find it at Union Bank. All you have to do for elegant stoneware is deposit $50 in a new or existing savings account, or open a checking account with $100 or more. Your first and 8th place settings are free. Union Bank sets a beautiful table with stoneware, spring flower, and desert sand. Stoneware from Union Bank. It's what all the best dressed tables wear.
Central Alabama's widest selection of cars, trucks, and vans. Montgomery, Lincoln, Mercury, Dodge means more lines and more deals. Montgomery, Lincoln, Mercury, Dodge, Central Alabama's uptown and country dealer.
The 2nd District congressional race has put incumbent Bill Dickinson back to Washington for a 9th time, judging by the votes that are in. 67-41, roughly the split there. Bill Dickinson with 67,171, Cecil Wyatt with 41,048 votes. Earlier this evening, George Mitchell had a chance to talk with Cecil Wyatt about today's voting and the election outcome.
Mr. Wyatt, it appears that you have been defeated by the incumbent, Mr. Dickinson. Are you ready to concede?
Well, if the trend continues as it now shows, George, I would think that Mr. Dickinson will go on to win this race. And, of course, first of all, let me say that I want to congratulate Mr. Dickinson on his victory and say to him that he's the first politician ever to defeat me. This is my 6th race, and I've never lost one before. And I want to say to all of the people who voted for me, and there were thousands of them in the 2nd Congressional District, that I appreciate that very much, and I hope that they will now get behind the winner and do all that they can to help make this democracy a success, because that's what democracy is all about, is that those who lose join in the camps of the winners and work for the betterment of this nation. Now, in addition to that, I want to say to the Montgomery Advertiser and to the rich and powerful here in Montgomery that they hadn't heard the last of Cecil White. I will return to the Alabama legislature more determined than ever that the voice of the average citizen will be heard. And for the next 2 years, I'm dedicated to that proposition that I will make sure that the voice of the average citizen is heard.
Cecil Wyatt talking with George Mitchell. We'll be back. Bob Ingram and I will talk about the voter turnout in Montgomery County and in the state of Alabama after this.
Quality living can be found right around the corner at Roland Homes. For the past 15 years, the people at Roland Homes have proved time and time again that you can afford the lifestyle you have always desired. All of our 14-wide and double-wide mobile homes come fully furnished, air conditioning included, ready for you to move in. I'm Bill Dickinson, encouraging you to visit Roland Homes. You'll appreciate the personal attention and easy financing our family-owned operation can offer you. You too can ensure your future happiness when you purchase a home from Roland Homes in Montgomery. Thank you.
Some manufacturers are now trying to build a world car. At Datsun, we've been building them for 4 decades. 40 years experience in perfecting quality and fuel economy. Our front-wheel drives deliver better fuel economy and are priced hundreds less than Escort, Omni, and VW Rabbit. And remember, the important thing about our world cars, they're a world apart in quality.
See the front-wheel drives at your Central Alabama Datsun dealers now.
A lot of people early on said that this election, for some reason, and for reasons known only unto them, said this was going to be a situation where we would have a lot of voter apathy. But I think they were wrong, to say the least.
We were wrong. I think I might have said that. A truly remarkable performance by the voters of Alabama today. I just did some quick checking, and 2 months ago in Montgomery County, 24,000 of you took the time to go and vote, and we lamented this, as we should have. Today, I think the total is going to be 65,000 votes cast in Montgomery. Statewide, it's inching up toward 1,200,000. A fantastic performance, really is. It's incredible.
The obvious question to follow with, why?
A whole lot of factors. You said something off camera earlier this evening, and I think might have summed it up. A lot of you will remember a great movie a few years ago called Network, involving television performers, and this character got carried away one night and told all of his viewers to go and stick their head out the window and say, we're sick and tired of it, we're not going to take it any longer. I think that's what happened today, not only in Alabama but in the country. Everybody went to the polls, voiced their opinion, loud and clear.
There's going to be some changes made.
Yes, sir. I think I've been watching politics a few years, and we in the press have a tendency sometimes to overstate it and say it's the greatest football game we ever saw, or the greatest fight, or the greatest race. I do think this is one of the more historic elections, presidential elections, that this country's had in many, many years. I think it signals a change in direction on the part of this country. But it's been quite a remarkable day.
Any surprises as far as you're concerned?
I think most people were at the close of the campaign were saying Reagan looked like the favorite nationally. I think most people felt that in Alabama, Carter, with the strong North Alabama Democratic vote, the yellow dog Democrats, coupled with the solid black vote, that perhaps Carter would save Alabama. And it does not appear he's going to be able to do that. I think that is a surprise. The Denton-Folsom race, I think, is surprising some people. We had a very competent pollster on earlier this evening, and right now he needs some help to come out looking good.
It's funny that you should mention those vote totals. We have new vote totals in right now from the race in the U.S. Senate between Jeremiah Denton and Jim Folsom Jr. The latest totals now represent 94% of the votes being counted in the state. That's leaving only 6% yet to be counted. It shows Jeremiah Denton with 591,806 votes as compared to Jim Folsom's 568,429. That's a 50% margin for Jeremiah Denton as compared to 48% for Jim Folsom Jr. The difference in the number of votes is 23,377, which means that Jeremiah Denton has now added about 5,300 votes between himself and his opponent, Jim Folsom Jr. And Bob, any final comments before we go back to
I don't think all evening, perhaps on the national level, but we have not one time used the expression, the new political phrase in Alabama, moral majority, and the role that it might have played. I'm sure in the days ahead, all of us will look and assess and reassess. I have to believe that they were an important factor in these close races in Alabama.
I think it could have been a motivational factor on both sides.
I think so, but I think it's going to be worthy of close watch and close study in the next few weeks. This election will be analyzed and reanalyzed.
We've got a lot of time between the third week in January.
Yes.
Something also that is of interest to some of our viewers in Elmore County, we understand that by about a 7-to-1 margin, the voters in Elmore County have decided to continue with a 1% sales tax, which means about $800,000 a year in revenue to the residents of Elmore County. Again, that vote margin is about 7-to-1 in favor of retaining a 1% sales tax for the residents of Elmore County. Bob and I are standing by. We're still waiting for word from the Folsom headquarters. We'll be going there live later on when the candidate makes his appearance this evening. Please stay tuned. Right now, let's go back to NBC for more of Decision 80.
Re-elected in Decision 80, the Alabama vote, is brought to you tonight in part by your Central Alabama Datsun dealers, Union Bank and Trust Company, and Gafers.
Who sold 189 homes in the last 60 days? Aronoff Realty. Get with the winner. Call Aronoff today.
A calculator that thinks for you. Programmed for your business needs. Banking, payroll, auto financing, and more. Sharp's cartridge calculators. Only at Bernie's Office Machine.
You're watching WSFA TV. We're proud as a peacock.
Seats. The end of the era of social engineering. That means go slow on the busing stuff. There are rather important problems on which his advisors do disagree. There's the inflation problem. There's the Supreme Court problem. And I believe he will appoint strict constructionists to the Supreme Court. That may be his most lasting contribution.
Of course, the speculation is he could appoint as many as how many? 3?
You can't tell what the ages are. He can appoint as many. Does he have a 4-year term or an 8-year term? He can determine the Supreme Court for the next 10 years if he wishes. There is, I've spoken this evening to Pat Cadell of Carter staff and to Worthland of Reagan staff. Worthland calls this a referendum on leadership. Cadell calls it a referendum on unhappiness. I think there's a morality code running through this country right now, a cultural thing which on occasion frightens me, on occasion pleases me.
Teddy, thank you very much. John?
We're cutting away from NBC to bring you a live report from the Folsom headquarters where the candidate has just appeared. Well, we can see that the candidate has come out to make a public appearance but has been cornered by a reporter. And I assume that we will hear the public statements from the candidate in just a moment. Jim Folsom Jr., once we get by that momentary delay. Jim Folsom Jr. still trailing Jeremiah Denton by about the last count we had. We were looking at approximately, 25,000 vote difference between the two. first time that we've seen Jim Folsom Jr. tonight, of course, receiving congratulations from supporters, flanked by his wife, Marcia. And as you can see, still a lot of enthusiasm. The vote percentages, we're looking at a split of only 2%, but I'm sure that Jim Folsom Jr. is probably still very much aware of the fact that his win over Donald Stewart was less than 2%. We're still waiting to hear what Mr. Folsom has to say in view of the voting trends as more of the well-wishers and supporters come by and have a chance to have some last-minute words with a young man that surprised a lot of people, following in the footsteps of his father, the gunman.
One thing about you can't get this bunch down. What's that? I want to say it's been a good race. You've all been great workers.
Yeah.
You've all handled yourself with dignity and fashion and the spirit of true Alabamians.
That's what
Nobody in this room has anything to be ashamed of. And we're all having a good time here tonight. It has been a long race, and I appreciate from the bottom of my heart the work that you put in for me. I can never express my sincere appreciation for all that you've done in this campaign. I sit here tonight very proud for the number of people across the state who supported me throughout Alabama. I will never forget that. It has been a great honor. I do not feel any remorse in my heart or any pain if I feel it is for you who have given so much during this campaign and all that you have done during this campaign. You know, I kept hearing this time and again, I wanted to say this, is that they kept telling me, says, you're too young. You know, you're too young, Jim. I'll tell you, I can live that down. But it has been a long race, tough race. I understand. What are the percentages now? Is it 6-24?
51-49.
51-49. I would unless
Don't give up.
we ran a good race. We ran a good race, barring some changes, barring some computer mess-ups or some problems in the tabulations. I think the numbers are pretty evident. I would congratulate my opponent. He's a worthy opponent, and he did. Looks like he is going to be the victor. But we are victors in spirit. Is that right? And I tell you, I just want to say, as a Democrat, that the sun, it's been tough on us Democrats tonight all over the nation. But
why don't you quote MacArthur and say you shall return?
It's been tough on Democrats all over the nation, all over this nation. This has been a bad year for us Democrats. But the sun will shine again someday. It always does. Tomorrow's another day. But I would like to sincerely say once again that you have served well. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your vote, your help, all of you here, and your support. And I want to tell all the people out there who voted for me how much I appreciate their help. And we ran a good race. I would like to say, being a Democrat in this state, I would like to say one thing. I would hope that we can unite in the future years ahead and remain the great traditional party that this state has always had. I wish that sincerely. And I want to tell you that God be with you. I want everybody to have a good time, enjoy yourself, and strike up the band, Andre.
Jim Folsom Jr. and his concession speech this evening, late vote totals that we have in, with about 90, I believe that's 96% of the vote that's been counted, 95% of the vote shows that Jeremiah Denton has increased his lead. Now he is leading by 24,000 votes over young Jim Folsom. And Jim Folsom made the comment that the age factor was something that he had to consider. He said he could live that down. He had no remorse about his campaign. He congratulated his worthy opponent, Jeremiah Denton, but said that he and his workers were the victors in the spirit.
You have to believe, Bob, he came a great deal further than most people thought he would when he qualified in the primary.
A late qualifier?
Very late qualifier, and most observers said, well, he's just running to get ready to run for something else, and he came awfully close to being elected U.S. Senator, a remarkable race. And this young man was born in the governor's mansion in 1949, the old mansion, and he might have his eyes on moving back into that new governor's mansion one of these days.
You never can tell. He does have the identification, the name identification recognition. We'll be back. We'll be going down to the GOP headquarters for a final word from Lisa Nielsen when we come back.
3 years ago, a group of local businessmen saw the need for a new independent bank in Montgomery. With 400 local investors and the largest capital base ever for a new bank in this area, First Montgomery Bank opened its doors in June of 1979. We've become one of the fastest growing and most progressive new banks in the state. And beginning January 2nd, we will offer interest on checking accounts. So come get to know us.
First Montgomery Bank.
Jack Ingram's new sales manager, Bill Pretty, talks with General Manager Lawrence Pierce.
Look at this, Bill. These other dealers are adding on a phony dealer preparation and a lot of unnecessary advertising charges and then giving their customer a phony discount.
You know, that's confusing to the customer, Lawrence. Even with the discount, their prices are higher than ours.
Jack Ingram Motors cuts through the confusion by selling quality-built Datsuns at low prices. No dealer prep or unnecessary phony add-ons.
Jack Ingram Motors.
We are driven to give you the very best.
As we said, Lisa Nielsen has been covering the Republicans here in town who are probably feeling a little bit better about how things have gone both here in Alabama and nationwide. Wouldn't you say, Lisa?
Yes, they are feeling a lot better, Bob. So much better, in fact, that most of them have left here. Unlike the Folsom headquarters, most of the supporters from the Republican headquarters have already left. And the reason, of course, is that Ronald Reagan was early projected a winner, and so was Representative Bill Dickinson. Also, I don't know if you'd call it a sweep, but there were several other Republicans who came in and won local offices, including Bill Joseph Jr., who was an incumbent on the county commission, and he also will be returning to his seat. And Joel Barfoot defeated the Democratic incumbent Clevie Johnson for his seat on the county commission, which means that there will be 2 Republicans and 3 Democrats on the county commission now. The reason most of these Republicans are saying that they just wanted a change, that voters are fed up with things like the economy, and they wanted a change, and that's why so many Republicans have taken office. Reporting live from the Downtowner, Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.
Nice seeing both of you tonight, Lisa, you and your image behind you there. That is it for tonight's edition of Decision 80, the Alabama vote. Bob, we've got a couple of minutes here if you'd like to sit down and sort of scrutinize all of this that we've been through in the last 6 hours. What would you sum it up by saying?
I would repeat myself. I think nationally and locally within the state, the housewives go to the grocery store, they see how much more they're paying for groceries, how much less money we seem to be taking home in our salaries. They were just fed up with the situation, and they said we've got to have a change, and they have certainly brought about a change tonight in the White House, and it carried over into Alabama, of course, with the election of a Republican senator, the first one since right at the end of the Reconstruction era. It was just a historic night, and again, I have the tendency, because I love politics, to get carried away, but it has been a truly historic night in Alabama politics, one that we'll write about and talk about for years to come.
We'll look back on this years from now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Bob, we'll be back with a final wrap-up. We'll run down the candidates and their votes after this word.
The way a lot of Americans select a real estate person is shocking. They take a chance that a friend of a friend or a neighbor's cousin who dabbles in real estate will do the job. Look, that home of yours is probably the most important investment you've ever made. There's just too much of your money involved to leave it to chance. Don't guess on a real estate firm. Select.
Down south in Tallahassee, Freeman Ford's the place to see the new cars, new trucks, new wheels. You're gonna love their deals. Get a new Ford at an old Ford price. Free service too. Freeman Ford, we love you.
Join the chorus and say, at Freeman Ford, Highway 14, Tallahassee.
Let's take one final look at how the voting went in the state of Alabama. Of course, Alabama is still teetering on the presidential vote, still only a 1.5 point separating Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter. But Ronald Reagan, of course, appears to be taking the state. Let's take a look now at the final votes that we have. I say final in the fact that these are the latest vote totals that we have in the U.S. Senate race. As you can see, Jeremiah Denton is still maintaining about a 24,000 vote lead over Jim Folsom Jr. Jim Folsom Jr. has given his concession speech this evening, but as Bob Ingram said, we may not have heard the last from young Jim Folsom Jr. as far as his politics are concerned. In the Public Service Commission race for the presidency, as you can see, Billy Joe Camp a decisive winner over Gordon Tucker. Billy Joe Camp was the former press secretary to Governor George Wallace, a name identification situation there also that I'm sure was a boost to him. 499,214 votes for Billy Joe Camp. His Republican opponent, Gordon Tucker, with 239,704. And also in the 2nd congressional district race, Bill Dickinson was a decisive winner this evening over his opponent, Cecil Wyatt. 671,000 votes, or I beg your pardon, 67,171 votes for Bill Dickinson. Dickinson, 41,000 votes for Cecil Wyatt. That, again, sends Bill Dickinson back to Congress for the 9th time. As far as the county races are concerned, Bob, if you will just give us a quick rundown on how the county votes went. I don't think you've got that.
I don't have that.
I think Lisa Nielsen.
The races are resolved. Bill Joseph, the Republican incumbent, was reelected by a comfortable margin over Mrs. Peel. And Mr. Cleaver Johnson, the incumbent Democrat, was defeated by
Joel Barfoot.
And Mr. Knight won a landslide over Mr. Power, I believe it.
Tyrone Pryor.
All right.
That is it. I beg your pardon, Purdue. I'm
we'll
sorry.
Get it right. I mean, Tyrone Power was a movie star.
That's right.
It's late.
That's Ronald Reagan that was the actor. I beg your pardon. But that is it for now. Thank you for watching this evening. We certainly appreciate your staying with us throughout it all. And we will have, of course, a more definitive look at exactly how the votes have been cast beginning tomorrow morning at 7:25. Hope you'll make your plans to join us then. And before we go this evening, we'd like to say thanks to a lot of people who don't get a lot of credit this evening. The people behind the scenes who have been here to help us, to our engineers, to our poll workers, to our technicians, and of course to all the studio personnel. We say a great big thank you, because without them this would not have been possible this evening. Right now we'll be going back in just a moment to join NBC for a final look at what's happening on Decision 80.
Decision 80, the Alabama vote, has been brought to you tonight in part by First Montgomery Bank, Jack Ingram Motors, and Town & Country Interiors.
Who sold 189 homes in the last 60 days? Aronoff Realty. Get with the winner. Call Aronoff today.
A calculator that thinks for you. Program for your business needs. Banking, payroll, auto financing, and more. Sharp's cartridge calculators. Only at Bernie's Office Machine.
This is TV 12, Montgomery.
Reagan doing well in Michigan. We project that he will carry it. As you can see, he has a significant lead. He did well everywhere in Michigan except the city of Detroit. Ohio, a key state. No Republican has ever been elected president without it. James Rhodes, the governor, said he would deliver for Ronald Reagan, and he did. 75% of the precincts reporting so far, a huge number for Ronald Reagan. He's got a lead there of about 400,000 votes altogether. That's big in Ohio. In Illinois, another of the battleground states, 2/3 of the precincts are in so far. Ronald Reagan with a lead there of about, 100,000 votes altogether? Still enough for NBC News to project that he will win. And in Texas, which Jimmy Carter won, but just barely 4 years ago, tonight he lost it to Ronald Reagan with the help of Governor William Clements and Vice Presidential candidate George Bush. A big number for Ronald Reagan in Texas. He ran extremely well in the cities and the suburbs of Dallas and Houston, well enough to offset Jimmy Carter's strong showing in the Hispanic or Chicano voting areas of the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. So that's how it stands in the battleground states. Strong showings for Ronald Reagan right straight across the board. Now Jessica Savage.
We're looking at the breakdown now of the House of Representatives. Going into this election, the Democrats had 273 seats out of the 435. The Republicans had 159. 218 seats are needed to control the House of Representatives. Republicans aren't going to get that, but they are going to pick up seats, and they're going to pick up more seats than they had expected. A couple of weeks ago, the projections were maybe 12 to 25 seats for the Republicans. Let's look at our projection now. NBC News projects the composition of the House of Representatives will be 248 Democrats and 187 Republicans. That's plus or minus about 8 seats. So the new House